Kanye West calls Black Lives Matter a scam after runway stunt. He says, "You're welcome." What he did was at Paris Fashion Week, he adorned his models with various clothes that all said "White Lives Matter" on the back of the.
Yeah, I saw the shirt and I think that it's cool.
You gonna get one?
Yeah, maybe. No, it's not a ready-to-wear collection. I think he was just presenting this for Paris Fashion Week. But he himself was donning one of these shirts with the slogan.
The idea
but his daughter North was there and she wasn't wearing it, which I think is cool that you wouldn't like put a political message on your kid.
Yes.
Let's start with the most amazing thing that Kanye West has gotten himself into Paris Fashion Week. This might not be his first appearance.
It's not the first time,
but still, like
so. And
Kanye West,
they
weirdly enough,
in 2017.
Kanye West, who produces beige sweatpants as his like marquee fashion item, is at Paris Fashion Week. Like, what a crazy day and age.
Are we going to act like any of the other designers there are better? Because I heard horrible things about New York Fashion Week. I don't think he was featured there.
I think it's like, I'm not even against it. It's just like such a sign of the times that the king of like overpriced sweatpants after we get out of COVID is like, I'm at Paris Fashion Week with political statements on t-shirts. Like, Kanye
just means that he needs to put political statements on sweatpants too.
I know. Where is my embroidered
Make them worth the money.
It's crazy.
There is nothing inherently political, or there should be nothing inherently divisive about a phrase like "White Lives Matter." If we were in a sane
young baby,
you don't let me finish. If we were in a sane society, we are not in a sane society. Oddly enough, the phrase "all lives matter" could have been phrased, but he knows that as
that's also bad.
An actual I argue that it would have gotten less attention though. That he is what you would call actually subversive. In an industry full of people who claim to be subverting the establishment when they are plain and simple the establishment, he is actually subverting the culture, and you can tell by the backlash that he is receiving from this. He's kind of an expert at being provocative with his messaging. Make America Great Again hat, all that stuff. This isn't his first go round, and he knew exactly the type of response that this would entail.
Yeah, I think he was specifically looking for backlash from the media, and that's why I wouldn't say it shouldn't be an inflammatory phrase. I think no matter what, the phrase, like any collective race lives matter, it's presuming that there is opposition to that sentiment. Yes. So it's going to be inflammatory in some sense.
By design.
But
I also want to point out that
I don't think that he's necessarily convicted in what the phrase
No, I don't think so either.
means to anyone. He's just trying to get attention, and he perfectly executed that plan because a fashion editor at Vogue took to her Instagram story to presume what his intentions were and basically write a whole thesis essay on what she presumes his intentions were in making these shirts.
Emotivism.
It was crazy to see her like come to so many different conclusions about his philosophical intent behind these t-shirts when really he was just making a grab for attention, which I totally think is fine. He's a pop star, like basically he's a tastemaker. That's what his job is.
He sees himself as George Lucas. That's what he says in an interview. He said that he sees himself as George Lucas. And that's funny, too, because he's a huge Star Wars fan. So that makes perfect sense.
There are two components of this that stand out to me. Number one, the fact that instead of saying all lives matter, he said white lives matter, because he knows that's sort of what people are getting at when they say all lives matter.
Yes.
Like, it is interesting that, you know, whether he's dedicated to this point of view or probably more likely he's just doing it to go viral and get your attention, he secretly rubs his hands and is like, strike, everyone is mad at me. The other part is like, he then took to his Instagram and was like, Black Lives Matter is a scam. And to be fair, people have a lot of complicated feelings towards Black Lives Matter, but they are in court over a lot of fraudulent and financial issues, like literally scams.
$10 million being stolen from donors.
Yeah.
Patrice
they
Cullors,
have private like mansions registered through the nonprofit that are actually just being used for personal gain. Like, they are in violation of a lot of really serious nonprofit issues. So I think in some ways it is interesting. Again, I don't actually know that Kanye West believes any of this stuff, but I do think it's interesting that his platform is calling attention to two issues, both the like weird tension we have about race in America, where we are afraid of saying some races are valid and some races aren't, but also like literally pointing out the obvious, which is that Black Lives Matters is a mismanaged organization.
I don't think he's even trying to make a point about racial politics or about BLM or anything. I think that he's trying to make a point actually about artistic freedom, and specifically that he feels he is not afforded the same artistic freedom that other designers and musicians are. And he feels specifically targeted by the media, and by presenting these slogans, he got the perfect way to put someone in the media on blast who is trying to read into his intentions and superimpose them onto him. So I just want to like read from Gabriella Carafa Johnson's Instagram story. She's the contributing editor from Vogue who posted about this extensively.
Is this the lady that said that the t-shirts are pure violence?
Yeah. So she posted screenshots from a text conversation with a friend, and I cannot imagine being this friend just getting a wall upon wall of text from someone just like absolutely losing their mind. She said, "What I feel is that he's not fully aware of the difference between appropriating BLM and subverting the Make America Great Again hat. Although I disagree with his thesis there, I understand his idea that the hat was a ready-made and its value was intrinsic to context, signature of the artist. When worn by Trump, it's racist. When worn by Kanye, it's about liberation."
What's he being? I actually have a question there. What's he being liberated from?
So liberated from the expectation that all
expectations.
African American people in this country support Democrats.
So somehow it can mean one thing to one person, but one thing to another. I understand that concept. I don't understand the idea that
he was really into Candace Owens during this time period of his life, and he was a lot of.
She was there here.
Yeah. So he does a lot at that time when he was talking about like this tweet where he was like, Candace Owens is saying some interesting stuff. It was a lot about her perspective on like, don't blame all your problems on slavery, don't blame all your problems on Republicans. Like from what I'm remembering about this period of time, like have like ownership of basically how you behave, which at the time it seemed like it was appealing to Kanye West.
I think it's correct that he's looking for liberation, but it's not just from political expectations. It's more so about artistic expression, because I think he's specifically targeted by the media when he tries to do something unique and interesting with his art.
They also misrepresent what he says here when he says, so the guy who thought that slavery was a choice and that the woman who said slave owners deserve reparations more than the slaves wore matching White Lives Matter shirts. That's not what he meant when he said that. What he's saying is that the mindset now is a choice.
Mm-hmm. He said, like from this wall of text, I see Gabriella said he was trying to illustrate a dystopian world in the future when whiteness might become extinct, or at least would be in enough danger to demand defense. But the danger is that this very premise, the idea that white supremacy is in danger of extinction, is what justifies mass incarceration, murder en masse, indeed even the advent of slavery. She continued, the added layer of him having kids from his Donda school performing the soundtrack really felt like the divide between indoctrination and education has never been finer. That point is totally correct, just not in the way that she thinks it is. And I think it's really intellectually dishonest that she's applying all of these different artistic intents to him when he hasn't had a chance to explain himself. And also the expectation that he does fully explain his artistic intent is out of line anyway. He shouldn't have to. And
when he does, he talks about himself. He literally proves to you that he's using this.
He proves that it's not political or about racial politics,
because he makes it about himself. He says, however, the rap star appeared undeterred the following day after the show when he took to his Instagram account and says, everyone knows that Black Lives Matter was a scam. He wrote in a text, now it's over. You're welcome. Well, I just saw somewhere that's like Black Lives Matter, like the organization. That's an important distinction here. Whenever I mention it, I say BLM Inc., which is very different from the concept of Black Lives Matter. Any rational person, any adult who actually has some sense of humanity understands that everybody's lives matter. But the idea that the corporation that's based around it is a scam, like you said earlier, there's more than enough evidence to say, if not a scam, that there is questionable intent.
I mean, even if he's not calling the political movement itself a scam, he is calling the conformity a scam.
Yes.
The conformity that he is expected to fall in line with.
You could be right. I'm thinking of it more along the lines of the corporation. You're thinking of it more along the lines of the social implications of the actual movement.
Because Kanye is he has a very individualist mindset.
Yes.
He's an artist. He believes that with his art, he can subvert people's expectations, and that's exactly what he's doing.
Also remember that the ADL has labeled White Lives Matter a hate slogan.
The ADL, I'm just going to go out and say it, the ADL has an extremely strange standard for what's considered white supremacist violence. One time they did the study, this is going to get political, but they did a study on like white extremists, and they were saying white extremism is the most prevalent thing in the country. And one of their examples was a man who has like white affiliated gang prison tattoos who murdered his kid and ate him. And he was like, see, an example of white violence. So I don't know that I would always use the ADL as your trustworthy source.
So in the fashion context, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to continue on what
she was saying.
Editor was saying. She followed up on her stories because I think she was getting some pushback. It seemed to some people that she was coming up with justifications for the t-shirts. Even though she said she was fuming,
she was trying to intellectualize it.
Yeah, and she was trying to come up with intellectual excuses for what he put down the runway, which is presumptuous in and of itself, because you're presuming that he needs an excuse. And like, here's some news for you: it's Kanye West, and he doesn't need you to come up with excuses for him, even if that's not what you were aiming to do anyway. So she followed up her post saying that some viewers think her post was containing justification for the incredibly irresponsible and dangerous act of sending a White Lives Matter t-shirt down a runway. By the way, she censored the word white with only 3 asterisks.
Oh, also, I want to point out that
White lives matter.
they talk about how that he forced models to wear these shirts, as if to say that the conformity would
It's a job.
Yeah.
Like, the models voluntarily took the job of wearing this, and I'm sure that they, if asked, would express that they were thrilled to be able to model for a brand as publicly known
and
as
actually,
Yeezy.
At Paris Fashion Week.
At Paris Fashion Week, of all things.
I want to point out that there was this article about Bob Marley's granddaughter, that's Lauryn Hill's daughter, talks about working with Kanye and wore this clothes. And there's this stark difference in the tone. We'll get back to it. It's like there's this stark difference in the tone between when they talk about what they're excited about and when these people that are pushing back talk about what they're excited about. She's talking about how Kanye West is inspiring and it was a dream to work for him and all this stuff about how she's inspired about how creative he is. Like, there's actual genuine joy and creative excitement behind what they're doing, but the people that are tearing him down don't know how to create. They only know how to criticize and destroy. So there's just, to me, that was like, I kind of like going through all this. I was just getting not annoyed, but reading all this stuff it'll kill your joy. It will. Like, reading this stuff, but like reading her talk about her excitement to work with him actually got me excited about covering it, because it was like, it's not all bad.
The enthusiasm of his creative collaborators and his models and his fans is always going to outweigh the outrage from people like the Karefa Johnson media personality, who is calling it indefensible, calling it violent even.
Yes,
saying,
to wear a shirt.
Yeah, it's incredibly irresponsible and dangerous. He tries to send a social message, not a political one. And it's usually about himself and his own personal feelings and history, because he's an incredibly individualist person. And I know that he's done interesting things with runway shows before. Like, he even had models pick clothing out of garbage bags off of the floor to mirror the experience of the homeless who have to rummage for what they need to subsist.
He is kind of like the actual, in an industry full of people claiming to be artists, he's an actual artist.
Yeah.
And to be fair, he's allowed to be that because of the size of his platform and the money he's generated.
He was like that. He's always been this way.
I know,
That's
but I'm saying
why-
but he gets the mainstream attention
Yeah.
because of
what I was going to say is, like, for a long time he had this reputation of being erratic, which I'm not
Yes.
saying he isn't, but also I think in some ways now people know him, they know kind of what his reputation is, and so they expect him to be doing weird things. Where when he was just doing weird things while he was coming up, they were like, that guy's unusual.
And long before I didn't really, I'm a dude. Like, I didn't care about his fashion stuff. I cared about his music growing. Like,
A lot of guys actually care about his fashion because there are like sneakerheads out there and people who are just like all around fans of everything he does.
But for a long time, for me, what I always noticed was that his music was very rare. He was one of the few artists that was allowed to get mainstream airplay with content that was inherently very rarely mainstream in its message, right? So
Yeah.
most of the songs that he put out would follow a format that had undertones of club music, but the actual lyrics and the actual content that he was releasing made you think. And I always had a lot of respect for him for that. On top of the fact that people point out the fact that he got labeled a lot of things because he's they call him erratic. They call him every time he does something that they don't like, they point out mental illness, which is
I mean,
abhorrent.
that's what he accused Kris Jenner of.
Yeah.
He was like, when I started, speaking my mind or whatever, she had me locked up. Theoretically,
Yeah.
is bipolar disorder. Yeah. I think part of it is his authenticity to doing what he wants, no matter what. I mean, remember, this guy's declared bankruptcy. Like, it hasn't all just been straight wins for Kanye. Built this really dedicated and authentic fan base. So he can have unusual projects and he can take risks at these major platforms now that he has made his way there because people feel like they understand him more than just as this artist that's produced by a record company. Like, he is a brand and sort of mindset in and of himself. And people who have been following for a long time want that from him. If he did just a normal, regular show at Paris Fashion Week, they would be like, this doesn't seem like Kanye. Are you okay?
I would also go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to follow off of like what you said about his music and his lyricism, because I think a lot of rappers are praised for having really deep, meaningful lyrics. But firstly, like, musically, the quality is not up to par with Kanye, and the meanings of the lyrics from like a Kendrick Lamar, it's not as sincere. What people like about Kanye West is his sincerity, and as an artist, he feels that he's been discredited, especially with that.
There's plenty of
that
racial
he is
politics in
mentally
his
ill,
music.
like that he suffered from mental illness. He's been discredited for that. He's been made to seem like the unstable one in comparison to his now ex-wife, especially. But like, if you have sincerity and you don't care about the backlash, you cannot be canceled.
Yeah.
Like,
Which is
who
what
else
most people
would
are
go to
scared of.
Instagram, delete everything they post every other week, and post screenshots of a journalist's Instagram and post her outfits and be like, wow, Anna Wintour wouldn't like your shoes? Like, he's literally flaming this Vogue editor because he thinks, like, if you're coming at me, I'm going to come back at you just as hard.
Because they expect you...
That's fair game.
And they expect you to crumble and apologize the second they come at you.
And yeah, if your job is critique, then you should expect an artist to have a way to answer for that. Like, he is coming back at her on Instagram, and I'm sure this is the most attention she's ever gotten online, simply because she's getting a fair pushback to calling an artistic statement violence. And beyond, it's not just her either. It's a lot of the people in general. It's just different because she has a platform, and also she has the credit in people's eyes of working for Vogue, which obviously has a huge part in the coverage of Fashion Week all over the world. And she thinks that gives her the power to interpret exactly what Kanye meant with his art, and that I think is an attempt at like violating his conscience.
It also speaks to what we talk a lot now about how when they make these movies and they make these TV shows, you're not allowed to, like The Boys, you're not allowed to interpret the art your own way. You have to, they want you to interpret it the way they want you to interpret it. You're not allowed to take away from it what you will. Like I listen to, there's some songs that come to my mind, like there's a song called We Can Make It Better by Kanye West. He has a whole library of music that goes heavily into the concept of racial politics and issues with America. But it was done in a way, like you said, that was heavily individualist and spoke to his experience rather than society as a whole, on top of getting into what it might mean for society as a whole. But it tended to be more reflective and open to growth than a lot of it comes from today. A lot of the music that comes out today seems to be like what we referred to as like it's scorekeeping, meaning there's a lot of revenge in what we hear these days. That they don't want healing, they want revenge for things of the past, things that nobody alive today that we didn't have any part of. You can make the arguments about you benefit from a system of oppression, this and that. There's discussions that can be had there, but he's simply taking a different point away. He's taking a different path around to a lot of the same conclusions, and they're so rigid in their philosophy that they don't even like his the route he takes to get there, even if he comes to a lot of the same conclusions that they do.
Yeah, I think that.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I think probably Kanye West has such a target on his back that he could have sent anything down the runway, and they would have been like incorrect, bad Kanye. Like if it was this and it had, I don't know, Kanye West is cool on the back, they would have been like, a t-shirt for Fashion Week? Like, how could you even do this?
What they're doing is disparaging him as a person and not critiquing the art itself. You can easily claim that his art doesn't have the depth that he thinks it does. That's a valid critique. But she is explicitly attacking his character and reading into his intentions without giving him a chance to explain himself. Yeah. And that's what has been done to Kanye every time he attempts to subvert people's expectations. And no wonder he finds that so like intriguing and like delicious to do that every single time. It works every time. And
like you said, the people that work with him seem to have a lot of, like the models, and you said seem to have a lot of nice things to say about him. So it says Sella, is it Sella? I'd imagine
Sella.
It's pronounced Sella Marley. She's the daughter of the Fuji singer Lauryn Hill, who's had her own long history in racial, talking racial politics through her music. So there's something to be said about that as too. She says that. There was a video of her talking and joking with West at an event. In the video, she's wearing a White Lives Matter shirt. She captioned the video, "Love you, Kanye West." In total, Sella posted 3 videos showing her wearing the item. She was not forced to wear anything.
Yeah.
She's doing so because she believes in whatever that message is. What we can't know.
Not even a message. She believes in Kanye as a person.
As an artist and as a person. So she's not reading into it. The other person's reading into it and then attributing motive to everyone who doesn't see it her way.
Yeah. The editor is saying he is, by sending this down the runway, he is imagining a dystopian future where white people are going to go extinct. And it's like, I think you're imagining that and then placing that onto somebody else's creation because you're not capable of creating something yourself.
So it says, so many folks are trying to excuse, this is Jamila Hill. Jamila Hill. I don't know who that is. I almost thought it said Jamila Jamil, but we'll get into that later.
Everyone named Jamila.
Yeah. So many folks are trying to excuse Kanye West wearing a White Lives Matter t-shirt as just a troll move or marketing, but maybe it is, but it's a dangerously dumb message to send for someone with a massive platform. Again, I phrase, what is
maybe it's
dangerous about the phrase in and of itself?
Do you want the actual answer?
I want the actual answer.
For why White Lives Matter is considered dangerous?
No, I want to know what the actual answer is. I don't want the politically expedient one that they're going to give. I want to know what the actual answer is. Is there even an actual answer?
I mean, the typical answer that I hear about this is that you can't say White Lives Matter because white people have had systemic power, and therefore any arguments or any statements that promote them ultimately they'll use the term violence or commits damage to minority people, specifically black people, who at this point in history need to be given not just equitable power, but overcompensate. They need more power than white people to balance out the historic imbalance there.
Do you remember the "It's okay to be white" on college campuses?
Oh yeah.
That was he should have put that on like a. He should have also released clothes that said
Lawrence
George Bush doesn't care about black people.
Didn't Lauren Southern wear a White Lives Matter T-shirt or "It's okay to be white" to an airport in Australia, and people like picketed? They were like angry about this. Like, this is not a sentiment that people are comfortable talking about, but I think it's because America has an extremely hard time talking about race, and I think we are uniquely prone to do so because we are the actual melting pot,
we're the actual,
unlike European countries or other countries. But I do think that ultimately white people in America are held as criminals, and therefore platforming them by giving them a White Lives Matter T-shirt at Paris Fashion Week is considered to be
that's the other thing.
incorrect.
This didn't happen in America. This happened in Paris.
I don't see Kanye giving anyone a platform, making any type of political statement. He's doing
he's always
something
been political. He's been
extremely-
political for years.
Sure, but only in the context of what it means for Kanye. Like,
yeah, well, the thing, it goes back to what he said.
Attacked Bush on
He's
stage.
making
he has had strong opinions about politics for a long time. It's just that like Kanye doesn't want to be in a box.
but he's making a commentary about Kanye every time that he's commenting on politics, really.
he
Because
gave a
he feels
speech-
like people are trying to take his platform away from him.
You
So
don't
imagine
know that. Like, that's what we think, probably because you're a fan of his music and you know his stuff. Like,
Well, that's what
he
he's
could be
explicitly
doing-
saying
This
on
is what he
Instagram.
says. This is what he says. So after people see the models, he doesn't talk about the shirts. He talks about himself. So he says he gave a speech before the presentation declaring, "You can't manage me. This is an unmanageable situation. I am Ye, and everyone here knows I'm the leader," he said. At another point, it doesn't appear that he directly addressed the WLM slogan. He was making it about himself. He was using those words as a vehicle to get you to talk about him. I have no problem with that.
It's derivative of a political message, but it's
funnier
not.
if you
It's
used
not
the-
a political message. It is a message about himself, his artistic integrity, his platform, his freedom. He feels like a lot of people are trying to suffocate his freedom and read into his heart in a
Like the editor.
like the editor did, and like that's something he's outwardly saying. I don't feel like I'm reading too much into Kanye's intentions by saying that. He is generally making a statement about himself as a person in his life.
Not every time he comments on politics it's about Kanye. Like this instant, yes, but he has been interested in politics pretty publicly for years, and I think that's okay. Like, he shouldn't have to not be political because he's an artist. He shouldn't have to be political because he's an artist. I mean, that goes against the message that he's portraying at Fashion Week. He doesn't want to be in a box. He doesn't want to be limited in any way. I think that he is genuinely interested in national issues. I just don't know that, like, the White Lives Matter movement is something he's genuinely interested in. I think it is
not at
definitely
all.
for the
I
virality.
don't even think that's a movement.
No,
anyways.
that's not a
I
movement.
think that it's probably just about the fact that this got so many clicks and the images of these t-shirts are going to live on. I mean, he is a master of the internet, if nothing else.
I'm going to finish his statement here. So he says, specifically in this fashion context, I see myself more as a George Lucas than a fashion designer, he explained. There's just people from the same planet, and sometimes in high school it feels like we don't fit in, and in a situation like this, we have the opportunity to come together to express who we are. It comes back to what you said about personal expression. So I think you're right. He is a genius when it comes to being actually subversive, and he got exactly what I think he wanted out of this, to no one's surprise that this was going to cause this much controversy. Also, having Candace Owens there was something he knew would upset all the right people who are going to say all the wrong things or all the right things in their own context.
Playing on everyone's racial discomfort in the West, particularly America, and from what I can tell watching his interviews, he seems to be like very comfortable talking about race and talking about all of his opinions on divisive issues.
We were watching an interview one time, and Mary and we were actually getting really excited because of how like excited he was. Like,
yeah,
do you remember that? Like
yeah. He just seems like a deathly sincere guy. That he like laughs to himself, and he just like refuses to be ashamed of things.
See, I like it when he's on interviews and he won't laugh, even though the host is trying to get him to. Like, no, you can't make him do anything.
What this is all about, it seems to me, is that like Kanye is saying to the world, like, I don't want to be a follower.
Yeah.
Like, he's saying that to the fashion world in particular, which is supposed to stand for that.
Thank you. The other, did you ever see the clip of him where he's talking about Lady Gaga? Where he's like, if you see a product, you can sell it. He's like, Lady Gaga she's the key directed marketer, the head of marketing for Polaroid. I like Gaga's music. What the hell does she know about cameras?
Yeah.
He's great. He doesn't say I like her music. He goes, I like some of Gaga's songs. But what the hell does she know about cameras?
Right. Yeah.
It's the way he says it. He's got this like look on his face. It's like super serious.
He's like,
I'm
the only one who sees the like illogical.
What the hell does she know about cameras?
He
like,
says it
tell
that
me.
way. Like he's like, I need to. Like he's actually asking you, the consumer, to tell him because he needs to freaking know. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.